Hello, I'm Dr. Lindsay Coble.
Dr. Noelle Crosby, and we're the Sound Sisters, and this is the Hearing Diaries. Today we have a guest, Dr. Eve Malcolm, who's going to bring an important perspective to hearing healthcare to us today. She is an audiologist and a practice owner who specializes in auditory processing disorders. She helps both children and adults better understand how they hear and communicate. Eve is deeply committed to thoughtful diagnostics, individualized care, and empowering patients who often feel overlooked or misunderstood. Eve, we're so happy to have you today. Welcome to the Sound Sisters.
Thank you for having me. Long time listener, first time caller. Very excited to be here.
So fun. Well, let's start at the beginning, Eve. Tell us, what's your origin story? How'd you get into audiology? Give us the basics.
You want my hero or my villain origin story? So my background is, I think, like many of us in audiology, I started with never having audiology on my radar. So actually started as a special education major, made my way to speech pathology, and then I had a lot of audiology courses in undergrad that for me personally I could relate to. I had chronic ear infections as a kid. I had hearing loss diagnosed when I was a teenager, and now in hindsight, auditory processing issues, now that I know what I know. But when I started having those audiology courses, it actually gave me a deeper understanding of all the things I had endured throughout, my lifetime to that point. And I also had, I still hate having my hearing tested, but I really hated having it tested as a kid because I remember the specific person. I don't know if they were talking audiologist, but like, why aren't you hearing the beep? Why aren't you hearing the beep? And I'm like, I can't hear anything. So I just wanted to be one less scary audiologist, I guess.
Yeah.
For kids and adults, but
yeah. We may not know the impact we have on a little kid,
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why they're like, "Hey, go in the booth," and it's like, "No, don't make me do it." But I found it really, really interesting. And even in, my final year of undergrad, I was still talking about going the speech route. And my future sister-in-law at the time, she's like, "Really? Because all you talk about is your audiology classes." She's like, she said, and, with passion. She said, so I really think maybe you want to pursue that. But yeah. But I was in that transitional phase of the master's to the AUD.
Oh,
so okay. I was thinking, I don't really want, I'm like, I don't want to be, I never wanted to be a doctor, and here I am anyway. But I was like, well, maybe I'll do the 2 years, but I would have been one of those that would have to go back and get it anyway to practice. So I thought, you know what, let's just go ahead, did 4 more years of school, and here I am, and I still love it and everything about it.
That must have been a hard for all of those students that were in that transitional period. You think you're at the end, and then you're like, nope, you gotta do some more if you really want to be at, the standard that you should be at now. Yeah, that would have been hard. And did you always have your private practice, or did you go through like some of us where you did ENT or, different avenues?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Detroit area. I live in Chicagoland now, but I worked for a couple ear, nose, and throat offices in the suburbs of Detroit. And then I moved here with my family for a year, and I worked for the Chicago Hearing Society, which was a phenomenal job.
A
I had the
nonprofit.
best boss in the world. So Gloria, if you're listening, you're the best boss I ever had.
Shout out to Gloria.
But it was, shout out to Gloria. Yeah. But then we moved back to Michigan for about 9 months, where I went back to the ENT office. And then I was, there was an opening for a trainer position with Resound back in Chicago. So I ended up applying, interviewing, all of that, because ultimately I really did want to be on the training side for a manufacturer. That had always kind of been something I'd been interested in and wanted to do. So I got that job, moved back to Chicago, and that was 17-ish years ago,
Wow.
16. I had to think about how old my son is. So yeah, about 16 years ago. And so I worked for Resound for 5 years. And then I had a little surprise pop up who is almost 11 now. And, my husband and I were both traveling a lot, and I decided like this was the opportunity, because I'd always kind of wanted to have my own private practice. I was just waiting for when I felt that was a good time. So Charlotte coming along was the right time. So I was actually going to start my practice from the ground up. And then the folks I was working with in business development had someone reach out to them that there was a practice for sale in Naperville, and did they know anyone looking? And all the pieces fell into place. And like 2 months later,
Oh, wow.
I had a new baby and a practice.
Taking the reins.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
A
So
story
here I
like
am,
so many of us.
11 years later.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so great. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
talk about I would call you an APD expert. From everyone I know in the United States, I would say you're an APD expert in the US. For listeners who may not be familiar, how do you explain auditory processing disorder in simple terms?
Sure. So I explain it as more or less a disconnect between what what the ears are hearing and what the brain is processing that auditory information as. So with auditory therapy, which I'm sure we'll expand on in a little bit, we're looking to kind of bridge that gap. So for some people, it's a misunderstanding of specific speech sounds. So like a buh for a puh, or an f or an app. We call those phonemic errors. For some other people, there could be some delays in processing. So eventually they'll understand what's being said, but it takes them a little bit longer, which can then kind of affect our short-term auditory memory as well. So layman's terms, I just explained to, patients or parents, it's just the ears and the brain aren't communicating quite the way we want them to.
Right.
It's an easy way to put it. I like that.
Was it always a focus for you? I feel like during COVID, that's kind of when I started, maybe right before that, I started hearing more about it and more focus on it, and there were more resources for it. So tell us a little bit about your journey with that.
So APD was not initially on my radar. When I was in grad school, we didn't really focus on it much. We talked about it. There was really no focus on it. So in one of my internships, there was a provider that I worked with, Cindy Wilson. I don't know if you're familiar with her, in Michigan, but she did a lot of auditory processing, and I did find it interesting. It was a really different aspect, but it was also very scary to me. I think for some reason, APD kind of has this, like, it's big, it's hard, it's scary, and honestly,
yeah, I'm scared of it.
Don't be. It's I was terrified. Then I got into it, and I was like, oh, this really isn't quite as scary, and it's really rewarding and exciting. And it's, for me, I'm not very good with like 9 to 5, the same thing every day. And I like APD because it's kind of a puzzle and it's a little different for everybody. But so kind of back to my APD origin story here. I had a provider in the area who only did APD, and she has since left the area, but she was looking for someone who wanted to think outside the box a little bit with her and fit her patients with low-level amplification in conjunction with the auditory therapy she was doing with them. And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. So I did my research into that to make sure I was doing it correctly and safely. And then when I met with her, she gave this wonderful presentation on what does APD look like in a child or an adult? What are the things that you might see or experience? And I broke down my office that day after her presentation, because I was like, this is my son. So I had spent basically from like age 3 and up. My son had been tested. We tested him for like ADD, ADHD. We tested for autism. I mean, like everything. And sadly, because even as an audiologist, I didn't know enough about APD, that also, like most people, wasn't on my radar. So when I was training with Dr. Alexander, she was like, hey, why don't I test your son and you follow along? Because it was helping train me with the scoring and stuff. And sure enough, like it was APD. And it's like everything now, knowing what I know, has just made complete sense for me. So now when patients come in, I'm like, oh yeah, that was my son. He tried the low level hearing aids for a while and he said it helped, but you know, teenagers aren't always consistent.
Yeah, teenagers.
And that's fine. But I mean, he's been really good at advocating for himself. And he's been doing really, really well as a whole. So I mean, APD isn't just, you know, something professionally for me. It's very personal. And I mean, as a parent who spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's going on, because in your heart of hearts, you know, something's not right, but nothing is coming up. So once I met with Dr. Donna and she just gave me that outline, I was like, yeah, I found it. That's him. So I tend to be kind of the last stop for a lot of people. And I want to let them know that like, it's okay. Like this is what's going on. It's treatable and we can move forward with it. So.
I think you mentioned that you had very little training in graduate school, which I talk about with my staff. You know, it was such a blur, such a little blur in graduate school, like maybe one chapter, maybe one class. I don't know. So how did you learn when you decided this is what I'm interested in? Did you just read books, watch audiology online? How did you learn it?
So Dr. Angela Alexander is if you're gonna have a picture of APD specialist in the dictionary, it's gonna be her. She's a wonderful person, a wonderful mentor. She fights tooth and nail for APD and helping people in services, as someone herself who has auditory processing disorder as well. So I was looking to expand my services and offerings because as much as I enjoy hearing aids and treating hearing loss, I wanted something else that could kind of like reinvigorate me with audiology. So I started looking into it, and now that I kind of had an idea, maybe this is what was going on with my son, there was more to it for me. So I reached out to Angela and said, you know, if I wanted to offer this, where would I even start? Like, where do I get training? What do I do? And she said, oh, I have an entire training module for evaluations and therapies through her practice Auditory Processing Institute. So I signed up. I started with the evaluation courses, and they're all self-learning, but they have a phenomenal community on Facebook that is extremely supportive. And it's just for people who've gone through the training of her group, but a lot of knowledgeable, experienced people in there. So I did all my training through there. I did some practice tests, you know, on family members and friends just to really get comfortable with it. And then about 3.5 years ago, I started offering it in my practice.
Neat. Yeah, so cool. And so then you went through the evaluation course, and she also has treatment courses then, right? Is it correct? Yeah. So learn to evaluate and then treat. I love that.
Or one or the other, right? Like you could just be the evaluator.
Yeah, because not everybody wants to offer therapy, but I thought, why not? You know, now we've got a solution. And there aren't a lot of people in our area that offer therapy anyway. So I have had people who've been tested elsewhere and then will come to me for auditory training. So
and what are some of the signs that people that have APD that are often missed? And what is the biggest misconception, you know, around this for teachers and parents, et cetera?
So the number one thing I hear from parents or family members is, I feel like they don't listen. They're not listening to me. Or I tell them things, but I have to constantly repeat it and remind them we have to make lists, which all make sense. So the most common, I would say, that we, or at least I see, are fall under the category of decoding, which is like literally how your brain decodes that auditory information. Whether it's decoding it correctly or incorrectly, that's what we're trying to figure out. So delayed responses are very common. So if you said, hey, can you go upstairs and, or like I might say to my daughter, go upstairs, brush your teeth, lay out your clothes for tomorrow, get your pajamas on, come down and make your lunch. She might sit there for a second. Oh, okay. And go upstairs, and maybe 5 minutes later, okay, so I have to brush my teeth and change my clothes and what? So that's another, so like they heard you, but sometimes when we have that delayed response and we're focusing so hard, we can't commit all of that to our auditory memory. So that's called tolerance fading memory. So between they take a long time to answer me, or I feel like they don't hear what I say, or if I give them, multiple step directions, they remember one or two at most. That's typically what we see. A misconception that I feel is common is that, especially parents, I think there's a correlation of APD and intelligence, and there's not. Because they'll say, oh my, but she's so smart. Yeah, she totally is. Just her ears and her brains aren't feeling like communicating today or any day. So that's where we need to figure out, do they fall across multiple categories of APD? Are they just falling across, decoding or, short-term auditory memory? And then we can see what those severities are and then develop, a training therapy schedule from there to address all of those issues. And then another common one is difficulty in noisy situations. So even with normal hearing, that was one of my son's things. Like he would just shut down. If it was noise, he would get overwhelmed and just boom, he's done.
Which I think we see in a lot of our aging hearing aid patients. I think that's just undiagnosed. Yeah.
Well, and not only that, I know there's been, and this came from my former PCC, who's now finishing up her AUD. She's like, well, I was only told that if you had hearing loss, you can't have processing issues. It was like, I've heard that, but I can't wrap my brain around it even now. Like, why wouldn't you?
Where would that come from?
Yeah, surely that's an old school thought, because I'm sure I was taught that in school, or I
was. You can have both.
In that one chapter.
No.
But that's kind of been my theme with the presentations I've been doing for the last year and a half of like, why wouldn't you? So I started offering auditory therapy to my amplification patients and just improvement for them, let alone just their self-confidence in those challenging situations or conversations has, grown exponentially over their 10 to 14 weeks of therapy. So I can't wrap my brain around that one.
Around that statement.
If you're not hearing well and your brain's adapting to a hearing loss and not hearing, like why wouldn't you have difficulty processing things? So.
And why not try treatment if there's something that can help? So neat.
Exactly.
So for those of us who, I've never done an APD evaluation, I don't think ever in my life. So for those of us who have never done APD, what does the initial evaluation look like? And then what does your follow-up plan look like?
So there's kind of two primary evaluations that you can give. I can't speak to the Bellis-Ferry model too much because I don't do it. But I use the Buffalo model, which was developed by Dr. Jack Katz. And in that, we are looking at roughly like 4 different categories. We have decoding, tolerance, fading memory, integration, which is kind of how we integrate audio and visual information at the same time. And then organization. So can we actually keep that auditory information organized for how we hear it in kind of simpler terms? So the evaluation, we start, if they haven't had one done, a hearing test, because I need to know what the overall looks like there. And then we'll move into a words and quiet and a words and noise. With the words and noise, we're actually administering the speech and the noise in the same ear. Otherwise, we're just masking. So we're looking at how well are they doing in quiet, what's happening in noise. And then we go on to spondaic words. So in that test, they're hearing 4 words. So for example, it might be like upstairs, outside. But it gets a little tricky because it will do a right non-competing, left and right competing, left non-compete, and then switch it. So you might hear up, stairs, out, side, and then it'll do another 4 words and do it that way. So can we keep it organized? Are we able to repeat back all 4 words? Are we looking at phonemic errors? I bombed that one.
I know, just thinking about that,
Really?
it's like, oh.
I might need a good night of sleep before that one.
Yeah. It's actually the one I thought my son would have the biggest challenge with, and he breezed through that one.
Wow.
So organization is not a problem for him. Well, auditorily speaking, his room's a different story. But and then the final test is phonemic synthesis. So we are breaking words down by phoneme. A couple things we're looking at with that one. We're looking at quantitative, so how many words are correct when they're blending those phonemes. And we're looking at qualitative. So we're looking for qualifiers, things like delayed response, extremely delayed response, quiet rehearsals, which I've seen a lot of. So that would be an example of if the word was cat. The presenter would say at. So if the person's there going to themselves to try and commit it to memory, that would be a quiet rehearsal. When they present the phonemes, you have to wait for a beep and then give your response. So we could have quick responses. So if it's at and they say cat and then the beep comes, that's a quick response. So sometimes we'll see that as a tolerance fading memory because we know what it is and we want to get it out before we forget it.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
So so there's 2 different scores with that test for the quantitative and the qualitative. So quantitative and qualitative. So then we're going to analyze all of that and we look at, and there's different norms for different ages too. But for this specific, for the Buffalo model, we actually do have norms down to age 4 now. So I know traditionally it was age 7 and up.
Yeah.
But we do have norms down to age 4. So we can identify a lot sooner and really help these kids even before, they're getting into school. And it could cause, more concerns or more issues for them in a classroom, which is noisy and hectic and things. So that's kind of the test. Depending on the age of the patient, testing can take anywhere from roughly like an hour to an hour and a half. If they need a lot of breaks in between the tests, then we do that because it is tiring. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And then I use a software that kind of does like a quick analysis, so I can get some answers right away, if you will, and then I can go over with the patient or parents what the results are, what we're seeing, and then if we are seeing an auditory processing diagnosis, then you can recommend auditory therapy from there, depending on the severity of the deficits that we're seeing, usually anywhere from like 10 to 14 weeks of therapy, and then roughly 45 minutes to an hour once a week. And then they've got some supplemental apps that we utilize. I have parents help with phonemic training with homework in between, which is pretty easy to do for like 15 minutes twice a week. So
it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah. I want to just ask, what advice would you give to an audiologist who wants to be involved in this and grow? I know you and we all talked a little bit about maybe some things that you might be offering in the future to help people figure out how to get this to their office as well.
Yeah. So I would say just start with what you want that to look like for you. Do you want it to be a little part of your practice? Do you want it to be like a good supplement, or do you really want this to be your focus? And then kind of as I would say for a private practice owner, if you were to sell your practice down the road, would you want this to be a part of what you're selling, or do you want to keep this for yourself? Right. So it was recommended to me to set it up as a separate business from my hearing aid practice. Everything is under one roof, but it's a separate LLC because, like we've said, not a lot of people do or want to do APD. So that way it's not like, well, I sold it and now we don't have APD here anymore. Then they've got that hearing aid side of it, and I could hang on to the APD business because we can do a fair amount of it virtually too. So
Yeah, I was going to
I
ask
wouldn't
that too.
necessarily have to have a full-time space to do it just for the hearing testing. And I do prefer to do the initial test in the booth, but so I would say if that, definitely consider that, setting it up as a separate business. And then figure out, you know, what model you want to do, where you want to get that training from. Angela's has a lot of support. So that's what worked for me. I'm also a lot better at self-taught and kind of learning on my own and virtual things versus, but if, you know, someone needs kind of that in-person training, then I don't know any off the top of my head, but that's
I was going to say, I didn't know there was
you could look
any.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my goal in the next year or so is to be able to start, because I've had a lot of people reach out and ask. So I'd really like to kind of expand my offerings and helping people, like getting that implemented into their practice, getting that set up, getting them comfortable with, you know, how does this look for me? Another thing to decide, do you want to be in network or do you want to be out of network? I chose to be out of network because even though there can be reimbursement for APD, it might not support your billable hour and your time. So I decided that this was going to be the best route. And we've had some people successful with getting reimbursement from their insurance after the fact directly to them, but that's another thing to consider. But yeah, I'd really like the opportunity to work with practices and help them get that implemented and up and running and going. And then I'm also working on developing like a little bit of a boot camp for that too, so people could have a virtual offering as well.
Yeah,
I love that. And I'm sure it'd be so well visited because I think it's kind of like tinnitus has kind of taken off, especially in this is like a specialized offering for people. I think APD is coming close behind here.
Absolutely.
Do you want to shift to rapid fire, Noelle?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. What is a one word that describes you and why?
I think I took a note on this one because I had a really hard time. Self questions.
I always get it in my head.
I have to say determined.
Oh yeah.
Once
I was gonna say committed. Like committed. Determined.
Maybe to some things. So I think determined because the first word I had was like tenacious, but then I was like, I feel like determined because even if I'm like falling off on something, I tend to be determined to try and find a way to remedy it or support it or fix it. I'm not always good at it. I'm not always going about the right way, you know.
But you're determined.
Flawed. But I'm determined to get some sort of resolution to something some way. And when there's certain things too where like once I put my mind to it, I'm going to make it happen. So like this boot camp that I'm working on, I really wanted to have it up and going by the end of last year, and that just didn't happen. So now I'm determined to just make it happen at some point.
2026. You got it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's gonna happen in 2026.
But I mean that goes in my personal life, you know, in different aspects too. But definitely in my work life.
Love that. If you can master any skill overnight, what would it be?
Play the piano.
Ooh, I know. Me too. I took piano lessons as a kid, and then
I did too.
And me continue. Lost it. Me too.
My brain and like the left side of I'm so right dominant. Like my brain and my left hand were like, I don't think this is gonna work out. So I took lessons for maybe 6 months in high school and I'm like, no. But now when I see people playing, I'm so jealous. I wish I could have.
I know.
Made it happen.
Where do you see hearing healthcare in 10 years from now?
I was actually going to mention this when Lindsay just brought up kind of the specialties of APD and tinnitus, but I feel like because of just where our field is kind of right now, we really need to stop focusing on the widget. We really need to focus on what we as doctors of audiology and those
Mhm.
masters in audiology. It's, you know, we're
All
medical
the things.
providers,
All
we're
the
medical professionals, all the things. We
Yeah.
need to stop focusing on the widget, and we really need to show our value to patients. Like, you're paying for our time, you're paying for our education, you're paying for our knowledge, you're paying for
You're
us
paying for what's up here.
treating.
Yeah, not a widget.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where I try to focus with my patients too. Like, yeah, the hearing aid's getting the information there, but the brain needs to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So, I really think, like you were kind of saying, Lindsay, I really think that focusing on these specialties is really going to be the direction we're going in the next 10 years, whether it's vestibular, whether it's tinnitus or APD. I think those are the things that are really going to set us apart from, you know, just fitting hearing aids full time, which I've done for a long time, but I also needed variety. And so I think honestly,
and people need it too. Our patients need these specialties. So
you need to treat the whole patient, not just the hearing loss.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to, so what's the coffee order that gets you through a busy day?
Okay, in the summertime, it is
seasonal. I like it.
Well, we could go really break down seasonal if you wanted to. So summertime, I like the vanilla foam, cold foam.
Oh yeah, me too.
Cold brew.
Cold brew.
Yeah. And then in the cold months, it's like a skinny vanilla latte with almond milk.
Good picks. What's the sound that makes you happy?
Thunderstorms and heavy rain.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Very
comforting about that.
Yeah, calming. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if money wasn't a concern, what would you be doing?
I would be doing even more, probably public speaking, doing a lot more of these, you know, seminars and conferences, which is still a goal. I mean, I absolutely will get to that.
And we need to hear from you. There's so much.
Thank you.
Indiana's lucky to have her.
She's I saw that.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm jealous.
Thank you for asking. Well, you had me last year, Noelle. So.
I know we did, but we didn't. I felt like we didn't utilize you the way we needed to. You know, like it wasn't.
I'll come back another time for sure. I would absolutely love to. I would love to. And thank you for the opportunity, Lindsay. I'm really excited for that. But I would also just travel more. There's so many places in the world that I haven't been and would love to see. But, you know, being a mom and working full time, and I also teach on the side. So I got a pretty busy schedule.
Life. Yeah, life is taking hold. What is one thing that our profession could do better, either for patients or for each other? Kind of a two-folded question.
Well, best practices is always the short answer.
Yeah.
You're fitting
things
with normal hearing. Please do real ear. That's all I'm saying. I think we need to be a little more united as a whole.
Yeah.
I still feel like we're really competitive with each other. And
that's what we get from a lot of people.
Yeah, everyone says the same thing. It's crazy.
Yeah. But I also feel a little like I might ruffle some feathers with this one, but like kind of stay in your lane. Like if you don't specialize in something or you don't know something well, like refer out. Like I vestibular has never ever been an interest for me or anything I've enjoyed doing. So when, you know, patients come in with dizziness and this and that and all these questions and all this thing, I'm like, I'm gonna refer you out to a provider who does that. Like I don't know. So and I mean, same thing with tinnitus. I mean, I do tinnitus retraining therapy. I've been on the wait list for Linear for a while, but at the end of the day, if someone's really struggling and I don't think TRT is going to do it, I'm going to refer them out to somebody who could do better than me. So I think that's a big part of it. And the competitiveness. I think that comes
down to the competitive nature.
I think so too. Like, and also, you don't have to be an expert on everything. This is what I can provide you. But the great thing is you came to me, so I can refer you to, I'm going to refer you to somebody. I know somebody who can help you. You don't have to try to find them on your own. So I think that.
Or even like CIs. I I do auditory training I have my own patients I referred out for CIs, but I would never tell them how to, do it.
And lastly, let's get on to the B. Which B fits you best? Be kind, be brave, be curious, be bold, or be happy?
Oh, I like to be curious because I like to learn new things. And I'm also a little nosy sometimes, so that just could be my curiosity.
You want to know everything.
Yeah,
no, I don't want to know everything. But no, I think just being curious is kind of what helps us continue to grow and learn. And I mean, if I wasn't even curious about the APD opportunity, I wouldn't be where I am today. So sometimes that curiosity can open doors that you didn't even think were there. So I would definitely go with the be curious.
Wonderful. In closing, before we wrap up yours, I'm going to present our Be Curious segment because it makes sense. So today we're going to spotlight Pinky Katara, and Pinky is an audiologist, and she's an author and a mindfulness educator who creates simple, powerful resources to help calm the nervous system, quiet inner noise, and prevent burnout. So it's a tool that we can all use. We're going to share some of her favorite tools that she created to help you reset, refocus, and breathe a little deeper, even on your busiest days. And Pinky's going to join us a little bit later in the year as a guest, but for now, I wanted to introduce you all to all these tools and links that she has. So we're just going to post them below so you have the opportunity to check her out. I love when audiologists get outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, it's fun to hear what other people do. Yeah, there's specialties on the side.
Yeah. So in closing, I would like to thank Eve for being here and so much for sharing your story and your heart with us today. I learned a lot for sure, and I think Lindsay did too, and I'm sure our guests will as well. So we're grateful for you and the work you do, and we're looking forward to all the things that you're going to be doing in the future with your boot camp and your other educational things that you want to help audiologists with. So thank you so much for being on the Sound Sisters.
No, thank you both so much for having me, and I was honored and excited to do this with you.
Thanks, Steve. Big things to come in 2026.
Yes, yes. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time on the Sound Sisters.